There was one guy in the cast that the director pulled me inside and said, he's up for a film and it's a really big deal. And if he gets this film, we're going to lose him. Sure enough, he got the film and we were like, congratulations, we love you. Also, we're all crying. It was wonderful. He was our leading actor and she had fully staged the entire show. There was only about a week left of rehearsals.
And now the pictures and
none of the pictures. We had the posters already printed. We had to throw all of that away. But yeah, that was one of those situations where it was like, this could destroy the entire production.
I always just tell people, you just gotta like soak it up. Hi guys, I'm Jack Payne and this is the Friday Sponge, where I sit down with founders, operators, and leaders to talk about the part of the story nobody tells. The decisions, the risks, the lessons from long before success was obvious. Real stories, real business. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to the Friday Sponge. I am joined here by Mile Square Theater, based out of Hoboken, New Jersey. I'm joined by two amazing guests today. First time ever had two guests, so thank you for that. Thank you for that. I have Elizabeth DiCandillo. She is the executive director of the Mile Square Theater. I'm going to say MST. MST is the acronym. Mile Square Theater, is that correct?
correct.
Okay, good. And I'm also joined by Cragin-Day, who's the artistic director of MST. So how did we come to meet each other? Fortunately enough for me, a couple weeks back, I was with Elizabeth. We were out supporting the Hudson Chamber of Commerce, or
Hudson County. Yeah.
Hudson County Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. Basically, Elizabeth and I quickly found that we were quick friends. Why? Because we both love small business, we both love Hoboken, and we both love theater. So that's what brings us here today. Mile Square Theater's been around since 2003, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty today about the story of how it came about and how these two amazing ladies are continuing to push the mission forward. So, ladies, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
It's been a heck of a journey just to get here today. The last 2 hours have been nuts,
Yeah.
to say the least. But I want to open it up to you two just to tell me a little about the theater, because I know a ton about it, or at least I think I do from my due diligence. But why don't you share with our guests, what is Mile Square Theater? Where are we today? And why do you love it? Like, why are you a part of this amazing organization?
I'm going to let Elizabeth go first because Elizabeth has been with MST for longer than me. So I'll let Elizabeth start and then she can pass it off.
Sounds great.
Okay, cool. The theater was started in 2003, as you said, in Hoboken. And so Mile Square Theater, Hoboken is Mile Square Town, even though don't tell anyone, Weehawken and Union Cities are also Mile Square cities, but okay, Hoboken lays claim to it. So Mile Square Theater has been here since 2003 in some form or another. We're a nonprofit, registered nonprofit, 501c3 type of organization. And the intention was really to put on really good professional theater in Hoboken. As the organization developed and matured, the remit of, okay, we really want to reach Hudson County with professional theater. Chris has pointed out that we are the professional theater, so we have an equity contract, an ITC Independent Theater Company contract.
That's a mouthful.
Catching up to the acronyms as well. But we run a full season. So there's lots of other theaters in Hudson County that do really great work, but not necessarily run a full season of. And our season right now looks like 3 or 4 plays, and plus 2 fundraising events that we're doing for Broadway night and 7th inning stretch. Chris O'Connor is the founder of our organization, still lives in Hoboken, and really put blood, sweat, and tears into getting us off the ground and keeping it going and getting us through all kinds of different seasons as an organization. I came on board in early, so I want to say like maybe by 2008 or so, or 2010, something like that.
So early innings. Yeah,
So early on. Yeah. And started working on a project with them, and then joined the board shortly thereafter, and was with the board throughout the capital campaign. So we were originally unhoused, so to speak, and so would do works on the waterfront or where we could get space, and then had some residents in the Monroe building for a while. And then they were converting the space that you were using to something else. And so we needed to leave there. In the meantime, this space became somewhat available, we thought, but we weren't yet here. And so through the capital campaign, I was certainly part of that campaign board member and also part of that committee. And so that was very exciting. We raised a lot of money and lots of people donated. And it's exciting to see a lot of them still connected to the theater to really help us fit this space out because it was a blank shell. And so we needed to make risers and make a booth and all the things. And then I stepped away from the board at some point. Chris was still the artistic director. We added an education wing in earnest, I would say around 2014 or so, and then opened this space as well. And so we've done all kinds of things in that sense. There's Chris was ready to transition away and selected his successor, Kevin R. Freed, who was here for 3 years. We're really proud of the work that Kevin brought to us and the ways that we were able to become more diverse and also lean into the equity that we really believe in. And so under Kevin R. Freed's tenure, we made a very concerted effort and a practice that we continue, which is that of each of our show casts and crew, we ensure that 50% of those groups are from a marginalized community. So whether that's female or sexual identity, gender identity, color, race, whatever that is, that we're really intentional about making sure that when we make hires in that sense, that we are very intentionally doing that. So Kevin started that tradition, and that has been something that we are very proud to continue and something very important and dear to us as well. There are other ways that you'd like to see us lean into the diversity and inclusion. And so we are looking for those and doing our best to work to live into that reality as well. Like I'm talking a lot.
No, this is great. You're killing it.
Okay. And then Kevin was ready to move on to other things, and we started a committee and came across Chris Cragin-Day. I think Kevin reached out to you and said, "Hey, I think you should put your hat in the ring for this." And so we met Chris, and we've been under 1 year. I guess coming up on May 1st was when
my official full-time. Yeah.
Yes,
But I started in April, so we're almost there.
that's true. We're almost there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had stepped away from the board and then came back, and then we're able to help to take us into another version of ourselves. And at that point, though, it became clear that some of my professional skills were going to be needed in the organization. And so I left the board to join the staff as the executive director. And so that has been really a joy. Yeah, really a joy and hard. And really a joy and hard. I'll just keep living to maybe start to stutter a little bit. And it's been the leadership team that we formed with Chris, and then we have education director, Michelle Dana, and general manager, Dave Zimmerman. Jen Price-Spick has been with the organization for 10 years as a production director. A really good, committed group of leaders who want us to work together to live into the vision of a space that is welcoming, a space that is good for artists, that is good for audience, that takes very seriously the really important humanity that is reached and supported when we are participating in the arts and really participating in the arts local. And our political landscape is fractured for sure, but what if one of the things we're missing is the ability to just be in the presence of others without vetting them for agreement? And so what if there's, rather than coming to some kind of agreement or making sure that we can nail things down, what if there's some human necessary good about sitting in the dark with strangers, listening to a story, and yet having an experience, exchanging oxygen in a way that's, oh, maybe they're not, right? Like we both cried at the same place, maybe. Then I'm riffing a little bit also. AMC has a Nicole Kidman commercial that talks about the same type of thing. And I know theater on a movie is different than live theater, because here you see it once. The show is not the show you're going to see the next night, even though it's the same play. But I do think we are missing some of the do it together, be in the presence of others without being in our camps, our groups. And so I feel like there's a huge, important contribution that live theater in your local neighborhood can make, particularly around connection, isolation. And look, I've watched plenty of Netflix. Nothing against Netflix, but what I get from that is totally different than when I sit with other humans having an experience with bated breath together than when I'm probably multitasking, coming in and out. What was that? Let me back that up. I didn't really pay attention. Take a phone call in the middle, right? That's a totally different thing than doing something with other people live. And in this case, feet from the action, right? That doesn't happen on Netflix.
I feel like 2020 was one of those years that we can all look back at as being terrible, but at the same time, it really could allow you to self-reflect and truly understand where you were in your life. Did you like your job? Did you like the people you were spending your time with? Do you have a good relationship? Do you spend enough time with your family? Obviously, the worst part about it, though, is that we all forgot what it means to be out in public with a group. And I think we're all learning that again. We're all trying to figure out what it means to be out in a group again. And I think that's the reason you see this increasing loneliness amongst young teens, amongst young adults, amongst all ages. It's because we've forgotten how to connect. And I can't agree with you more that you need these outlets, you need these resources, and people have to be reminded of what these resources are, what these places are outside of a bar. Because I, for one, I love a good casual cocktail, but I don't want to necessarily have to be forced to go have a drink every time I want to have a bonding experience with people. And I'll tell you this too, beer can only get you so far in a good conversation or a cocktail or two. If you don't have an actual activity that you can bond over, you can't really build a really deep connection. And I've always loved theater, and whether it's in person, whether it's film, whatever it may be. But you're right. There's something about just maybe being there, appreciating talent, but doing so in a group format. You're not even going to do that necessarily when you're watching Netflix. How often are you going to have a group of 15 people, 10 people, 6 people come over to your place to watch Netflix? That's not really going to happen. But if there's a big show on that we can all go to together, you make a night out.
Right.
And I think that's super, super important. That's why I'm happy we're having this conversation. So one of the things I loved too, Elizabeth, that you said a while back, and then I would love to pick to you as well, Chris. When we first connected, the whole point of this podcast was the idea that I'm trying to educate the next generation how to think like founders. And something you spoke about was the fact that when you put on one of these productions, every time you do it, it's like you're basically starting a new startup, right?
I'm going to add this to Chris because this was your dad's idea.
So you got the marketing.
Yeah.
You have the fundraising, you have the schedules, you have the strategy. There's so much behind the curtain, pun intended, that I think people don't understand. So can you maybe shine a light on what is everyone missing about the putting together of a major production? And you don't only just do one a year, you do like 4 to 6.
Yeah.
I think. So would you mind, Chris, me jumping in?
Yeah. And the other amazing thing about what we do is that it's a different team every time. So those of us that are on staff, we are consistent. But every time we do a show, at least half of the people that we're bringing on board are people that are only coming on board for that show. So we are finding the market for that show. We're talking about when it comes to social media, who are we targeting? We're talking about when it comes to the new people, we have to onboard them in terms of our space and the way that we pay people and the way that how to go to Trader Joe's across the street and get their lunch. It really is remarkable. And then theater is something that theater people are used to this. And so we're very fast at plugging in and coming together and looking around and figuring out, okay, What is the way that this group does it? Okay, I got it. I'm in. We're a functioning unit. We're really fast at that. We're also really fast at communicating like the passion behind a project and getting in line with that. I went to the very first rehearsal of the Mountaintop today. And one of the first things we do when we start a show is called table work. And that's led by the director. And it's where all the actors and the stage manager and the artistic director go around the table. We talk about why we're doing this show and what the show means. And on our level, everyone gets paid because we're a professional theater, but they don't get paid very much. So when the actors come to work for us, a lot of times they're actors that are like in between Broadway projects or off Broadway projects. And this is working at MST. They're usually working here because they have always wanted to work on a show like this. So the Mountaintop is one of those shows. Any Black actor in America wants to do this show before they get over the age of probably 45 because both the characters are in their 30s. And so that's part of our practice, is getting everyone in line and getting to know each other very quickly, building trust very quickly, so that we can do what is sometimes very intimate things in the storytelling process. It really is remarkable. Like, I think most businesses spend, you think of all the group building, team building stuff that corporate America does, which is one of Elizabeth's expertise. And they spend so much time on that. And then the theater, we've figured out how to do that very quickly and very efficiently because we've got 3 weeks of rehearsal and then we've got 3 weeks of performances and then it's over. And we all want it to be amazing. And so it's a lot. It's a lot that comes together very fast. And yeah, and I do think that you do go into it with a founder's mindset of what is the purpose of this? Like, the word product feels wrong, but there are products out there that are meaningful and creative, not that aren't theater. And here's this thing that we're making, that we're building together, and then we're putting out there into the world. And the one thing that we don't get to do that most business owners get to do is keep it going. In the theater, we have to say goodbye very quickly to it and move on to the next thing. But
the other thing that I found really surprising, so I have a corporate background, and a theater lover, but have not been certainly as much in a lot of things as I have been in the last year and a half. You see the actors, you expect that. Well, there's a director, you've heard of that, but there's 15 to 20 people that get assembled to put up a play, right? So a lighting designer, a projection designer, a sound designer, and then, the person to hang the lights, to execute the lighting design, and obviously the set designer and the set builder and all the scene pictures and
wigs
and right, and then costumes and and hair and all these things. You're thinking like, oh, it's the people I see, but a far bigger portion of the team that's coming together for a very short time, very fast. They may not be in the same room very often, and there's way more of them that you don't see. And so I think that it's surprising to people that it's 15 to 20 people to put up a professional play.
Yeah.
You're probably going to see 3 of them.
And all of those people also have to get in sync. Like, it's really important that all the designers and the production people understand the director's vision, understand the play, and are able to very quickly align on those, so that what the end product that you see feels like a team of people that are working towards the same goal. And yeah, that happens usually over Zoom with the director and myself, the artistic director, guiding those conversations. And then, yeah, it really is amazing. I started doing theater in high school and have done it ever since. I've never not done theater since that. since high school. And it's still amazing to me how everything comes together. I don't know if you've ever witnessed a tech week, but tech week is when all the designers come in and start putting in the lighting and the sound, and the actors are here, and it's very slow and arduous process getting all of the technical elements put in. But it's so cool to see because all of a sudden it's like you're seeing the pieces of the storytelling all come together. And it's just gives me goosebumps just talking about it. But
every prop, every piece of wardrobe, every lighting cue, every sound cue, everything gets right. And everyone is all
Respected.
together
Yeah.
to clarify it. So my only contribution is to make chili. But
That'd be good chili though.
yeah, it's you like chili. It's
Yeah.
But I also think I want to talk numbers if we could.
So before we talk numbers, I want to double tap on something Chris had said a little bit earlier, which is that if you don't know theater, if you've never been a part of theater, there's a lot that you're missing out on. And I think one thing in particular is that it's a high stress environment, uberly high stress. I would argue you could probably put on the same level playing field as maybe what some doctors go through, some high level lawyers, whatever you want to call it, just people who work in these very tense, high stress situations. I think theater's in the same spot, because to your point, you have to communicate well. You're working on a team. The team is only as strong as your weakest link. So if someone's not carrying their weight, the whole show can go up in flames. And by the way, you might get another shot, but in that moment, when you're on the stage and the lights are on you, that's all these people are ever going to see. So for you as a theater, for you to need to execute in that very moment, I couldn't think of a harder situation to be in. And it makes me, and the more and more you both talk about it, I think every single person in this world, whether you're a founder, whether you're a career person, whether you're someone that is trying to be putting on these productions, it's learning those skills, I think, are the most essential thing for anybody to learn. And can you maybe share with me how you mentioned that you've been in theater forever? Can you talk me through maybe how you yourself have gotten so good at managing some of those things, like tackling stress and working on a team and communicating clearly? Because any leader could take that home, that knowledge home. How have you really fine-tuned that for yourself?
It is a leap of faith every time, to be completely honest. I'm a playwright. That's what I do artistically, as well as.
And what is a playwright?
overseeing- I write plays and musicals. Yeah. And my MFA is in directing. I started out as an actor. Most playwrights did. And in all of those things, there is a point where you say to yourself, this might suck. I don't know if I can make this good. And you keep pushing through, and most of the time it doesn't. But I think in terms of you're talking about like the skills, so knowing that and having the faith in those crisis moments to go, this doesn't mean it's all going up in flames. But then I do think that theater people, the ones that I like to work with and work with over and over again, are very good at taking care of each other in those moments and not blaming. And look, there are people that do that, but they don't work very long.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to work with someone like that in a high stress situation. Like, the theater is so much about trust because of what you're saying. Because if I can't trust you, then my work that I'm doing doesn't ever materialize. I need you to do your job in order for my vision to come to life. And so if I don't trust you, it's just, we're not going to work together. So I think all those skills are true. All those skills are true. But building a team of people that you like to work with because you trust each other is people my age they've got that team already intact. And so when I call and I say, will you direct this show for us? They say, yes. And this is who I want to stage manage. And this is who I want to play this role. And this is who I'd like to design the lights, because they know that if they can bring that team together, that it will be a success.
And from your years, Elizabeth, of being in, as you mentioned, the corporate side of the world, and then having come into the theater space, what are some of those skills you even just learned from Kristen and Chris, vice versa for Elizabeth? Like, what were some of the things that from a corporate level, you were like, wow, like maybe we could fine tune that and bring this into the theater world? What were some of those things for each of you? Or was it really just, you were able to jump in immediately and just capture the day, you feel like, because you were accustomed to some of these things that Chris was talking about?
That feels like a leap. I feel like it is energizing for me to work in an environment where the love and the joy is a large part of the driver, because there's no money. So you can't dangle that over, right?
Yeah.
And so much in corporate America is, hey, this is the salary, this is the bonus, these are the stock options, and you don't have a choice and you're going to do it or not. And so there's a lot of autonomy in theater. You don't have to go to the audition. You don't have to take the part. You don't have, if you take the job, please stay, but that's a shower. But whereas I think there's a lot in corporate America that you don't have a lot of say in, you don't have a lot of, and your input might not be taken. This isn't a good idea, and you're still got to do it anyway. And so I think there's something very refreshing about the joy and the verve that comes. And I think also there's something innately human and nourishing about the act of creation. And as look, I'm a Six Sigma Black Belt. I believe in efficiency and work stabilization and standard work and all the things. Like, I'm not opposed to that. And at the same time, we can atomize the task so deeply that there's actually no human imprint on it. And so while we may have gotten good numbers, the human just went home depleted. And I think some of the challenge, like some of the welcome of working in theater, is that there's a wellspring of energy that's created by the creation. I think one way to be generative is to have children. But I also feel like in my life without children, I've given birth a whole lot of times, just not to another human. And I feel like theater people give birth a lot. You're literally creating something out of nothing. And that, I think, has a distinct advantage in terms of bringing people together. The other thing that I feel like that has been helpful is that there's a lot less structure here than I think is sometimes useful. And so routinizing the things that we don't need to think about so that we can free ourselves up to keep giving birth is, I think, a contribution that I'd like to bring and leave and provide that kind of stability so that we're not, like, I don't need to be creative over and over on the thing I need to do every Friday. Find a way to do it, standardize it, write it down, teach other people, stop thinking about it, because there's plenty of other things that we do need to be creative on. So that's, I think, maybe some of the trade-off. And I think also, I say this a lot, I could be wrong. You don't have to agree with me.
Yeah.
No is a whole answer in a complete sentence. So I think hopefully one of the contributions I make is to not get my way, which in corporate America, there's definitely a pecking order. And so you don't have a lot of say. So I think I value as a leader being able to disagree and being able to, we're not, I don't want to do that. And so it's not a matter of do it because I say, as much as it is to let's hash it out. Let's go with it. What, help me understand. I see that, but I see this. How do we hold those together? And so even that is an act of creation. And so I think that's useful in a team environment as well.
So it's funny, Elizabeth, because I think a lot of people think when you choose one career path that defines you, right? That's who you are. If someone was an accountant, if someone asks them, what do you do? Or who are you? I'm an accountant. If you're a doctor, the same. But I think that the idea is that these roles, these jobs, they don't necessarily need to define you. It's really how you want to define yourself is made by your skills and made by the things that you learn and do on the regular. How you present yourself to people is super important, but your job title doesn't necessarily have to be. And I think as soon as you're able to keep that open mind, to your point, you can pivot. And you did pivot. Like you came here, you were joined by some amazing people. You've grown this into this amazing organization. So that other amazing people be inspired by you to following your path. And yeah, I think it's tremendous. And I think it's really admirable.
I feel like I came into an organization. Yeah, thanks. I feel like I came into an organization that had a very strong vision and a lot of passion. I didn't create this out of full cloth. The path had been laid in front of me. And so I'm very honored to continue it for sure. But yeah, I'm standing on the shoulders of other people who sacrificed a lot for this organization to still be standing at 22 years. So really want to make sure I go on that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And hopefully 22 more and up.
Yes.
Right.
Love that.
So I wanted to pivot the conversation to talk a little bit more about the concept of a startup, right? And Chris, day in, day out, you experience it, right? As we've already mentioned, 6 productions a year, 4 to 6 productions a year. I don't think a lot of people can handle the stress of starting one company, nonetheless, 6 companies. And if you're telling me you're doing this annually, by the time you're finally done, it's gonna be in the hundreds, right? Hopefully. So can you maybe walk me through what it's like to build this startup that is a production and maybe just your experience of that?
Yeah. So I think, so from my perspective, one of the things I'm thinking about all year long is what that next season is going to be. Right. And so I'm reading lots of plays. I'm going to see lots of plays, looking for those things that I think my team is going to want to bring to our audience. And also, we're doing a lot right now of community outreach so that we can really more clearly define who that audience is and bring more people into that community. But I think that's the beginning stage, right? Is finding the thing, the idea, and the research. And then once we settle on the pieces that we want to do, and we understand why we want to do them, then we start thinking about how much they're going to cost. And we start thinking about what that audience is and how we're going to reach them. And that includes things like traditional marketing forms, but also like community outreach, like going to events, like how you guys met, and how do we meet this person? Because we think they would be a great partner in this, right? So it's a lot of strategizing. How do we meet the right people that we know we need to meet in order to pull it off? And fundraising. And my husband is a small business owner. So I see him doing he never had to get investors for his business. He's lucky. But I saw him doing a lot of, and actually he's recreating his business right now too. So I see him going through a lot of those steps before we ever even get to the point of hiring anyone. And then it's pulling together the team that's going to actually execute, that's going to be our operations, right? The people that are going to actually do the thing. And we're doing that simultaneously while we're also continuing to fundraise and continuing to reach out and do community engagement and start building that audience before we even ever start rehearsals. once we start rehearsals, yeah, it's like we're 3 weeks from the ribbon cutting ceremony. And we got 3 weeks to put it together when it comes to like actually starting rehearsals. But as Elizabeth said, before that even starts, there's sets being built at Drew University. So I guess that could be comparable to like manufacturing the goods, right?
Outsourcing.
Yeah,
third
exactly.
party.
Outsourcing the stuff. And yeah, okay. For the show, we need wigs. We've never done that before for a show. So how much does that cost? And I don't know a person that specializes in wigs. So how do we find that person? So every show, there's always one thing that we've never done that before. And figuring that out every step along the way. And then we start selling tickets, and Elizabeth and I had a conversation today that's how can we sell more tickets? And how do we make sure that we are kind of branding this show in the right way so that people don't think, oh, this is for those people, it's not for me. How do we make sure that the people that we want to come see that we're branding it in such a way that the people that we believe are going to love the show understand that so that they know that this show is for them and they come. So all of this stuff, my dad was a business professor for years and years and was also a serial entrepreneur. And he's the one that as a business professor, was asked to be in a show that they were doing at the college where he taught. And my dad is like a handsome, tall, so I can totally see why they thought of him, brought him in. And yeah, when he was done with the show, he was like, oh my gosh, that was the wildest thing I've ever done in my life. And I wish all of my business students had to produce a show.
How to produce a show.
Yeah.
That was like,
He was like, that would be the best way for them to learn how to start their own business. And I had never thought of it that way because I had always been on the creative side of things and less on the producing side of things. But now, as an artistic director, I'm on both sides. I'm on the creative side, but I'm also fundraising and looking at budgets and building budgets and stuff like that. So I see now more what he was talking about when he said that. But yeah, I do think that it is quite remarkable. I don't know but I think what Elizabeth said, it is a very rewarding thing to do with your life, and not financially, but in terms of feeling like you're doing something that doesn't shut down your humanity.
you think about putting together these productions, right? Obviously, because you are agile, both of you, in making sure that even if there's a brick wall that just pops out of nowhere, we're close to opening night, right? 24 hours, 24 hours, 24 hours, we are cutting the red tape and unleashing the production. This is our new business. The world is ready. The actors and actresses are ready, and tragedy strikes. Can you maybe tell me a little bit about, or just share a few stories, or even just one, about one of those tragedies or one of those situations that the world felt like it was falling apart and you were able to weave and deal and still make it happen so that we could have this beautiful production up and running the next day?
The one that immediately comes to mind. So yeah, I started here at MST in May and very quickly had to pull together season. Usually seasons are pulled together like throughout the whole 12 months in advance of when you announce. And our opening show of my first season at MST was this new play called The Supreme Leader. It had been done at Dallas Theater Center, which is a huge regional theater. So it wasn't the world premiere. So we felt pretty safe. And by a wonderful playwright. It was a comedy. And so we pulled together a team, and in the casting process, there was one guy in the cast that the director pulled me inside and said, he's up for a film and it's a really big deal. And if he gets this film, we're going to lose him. And okay, so we went into this photo shoot by David White, who's an amazing photographer here in town, and he was doing it pro bono. And we spent a lot of time making sure that we had great photos without him in it, just in case. Sure enough, he got the film, and we were like, congratulations, Jake, we love you. Also, we're all crying. He was wonderful. He was wonderful. But we very quickly pivoted, recast his part, and show went on. Then proceeded to our wonderful director, Sarah Shin, who's this upcoming genius of a director, staged the entire show. And our leading actor, who was the actor in the auditions, that we were all just dumbfounded at how good he was. Like me, the writer, the director, we're all looked at each other and we're like, he is the one. He is the one for the leading role. He had some personal complications come up in his life, and he had to drop out of the show. He was our leading actor, and she had fully staged the entire show. There was only about a week left of rehearsals. And we were like,
And now the pictures and
none of the pictures.
all of the argument, none of the money,
We had the posters already printed. Yeah. So we had to
Oh, no.
throw all of that away.
You couldn't, just because he wasn't going to be there, there was no way.
now 2 of the 4 were
No, but so we had printed them with only without the other guy already. But yeah, it was like he had a very specific look. It would have, no matter who it was, we couldn't have gotten away with it. And
That's before AI, where you can just
yeah, we were, yeah. But luckily the design that we had for the poster worked well without the photograph in it, so it was fine. But we very quickly, me and the director and the writer, spent 24 hours straight on the recasting. We got someone in, I think within 48 hours.
I think 24.
And he did such a great job of stepping in and not just playing the role, but leading the cast, which that role, he was on stage for the entire show.
And he came in the next day already with some lines already.
Yeah, most of his lines already memorized. And
Unbelievable.
it was amazing. But yeah, that was one of those situations where it was like, this could destroy the entire production. Because also it was, it's written by an Asian playwright, and both of these roles were Asian actors. And so it wasn't just, there were like very specific things we needed in this casting. Specifically, it had to be an Asian actor. And that's a lot harder to recast than a role that could be any race. It was pretty specific, and we did it. And that's why you need amazing directors like Sarah and writers like Dawn, who have a community of artists already at their fingertips, and they're able to, like you said, be agile.
And how did you keep, so I feel like if I were in your shoes, I'd either have a tantrum, scream into a pillow, just lose my mind. Maybe you did all the above. I don't want to speak for you, but how did you keep yourself together to make sure you could actually take care of what needs to be taken care of?
I'm the kind of person that, like, when I'm in survival mode or like task mode, like I stay very calm to get through the crisis, and then the emotions come after.
And was that a learned skill or was that something they were just
I don't know. My parents are military kids, so I think it probably somehow got passed from them to me. And I grew up overseas too, in pretty high stakes communist countries. Yeah. But I think it was, yeah, me and Dawn, the playwright is a dear friend of mine. We came up together as playwrights and he trusted me. I trusted him. The director was someone neither of us had ever worked with, but I think the brunt of it, I think she ended up taking the brunt of it because it was then her job to get this new actor up to speed. That was her job.
So Kristen talked about you start a rehearsal with a table read and what is this plan about and what are we trying to accomplish? Obviously, the rest of the group had that experience. This new actor, there wasn't time to go back and start that. So
Yeah, he just jumped in. And she and I had a conversation one day where I was like, I don't think he's really getting this part of the character. Like he's getting the surface stuff, but he's not getting this.
there's no way. It's like,
And she told me, yeah, we had a big, long conversation about this and this. I think he gets it now. And she was like, and I realized he hadn't talked about any of that. Like they hadn't had any of those conversations. He did a really amazing job considering all of that. And the truth is, it wasn't the kind of situation where to get mad because the dear actor that ended up having to leave, he needed to do that. Like the circumstances were such where that was absolutely the right decision for him and for us, actually. And so he did the right thing. And so there was no one to be angry at. Like everyone had done the right thing. But yeah, we had already spent $45,000. We couldn't cancel the show. So
that's insane. That's insane.
could you say something a little bit about your artistic vision, the kind of the 4 points that we've been putting together that you've been
yeah,
simmering on?
sure. So we've been talking a lot about like really making sure that it's clear what MST is and what we do. And here's our thing. Here's what we've come to, which is that we do small cast plays and musicals that are for Hudson County, Hoboken, and Hudson County, and shows that allow us to tell diverse stories and that really come to life in our intimate spaces. Because as you can see from this, it's 120 seats, but it actually feels so much more intimate than that. And the artists that work in our space, that's what they love about working here. And then our second space is a black box theater that's even more intimate than this. And certain shows really just pop in that intimate setting. And so artistically, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a show. Usually it's a show where the acting that requires really great acting, really big acting roles. And those kind of shows are the shows that you can't experience that anywhere else other than a theater like this.
So in that sense, we're not competing with Broadway, right? That there's what Broadway does is
I was just going to ask you.
It's fantastic, right? There's nothing like Broadway.
Nothing across the pond we have to even. Yeah.
No, because there's the grandeur, the scale, the eye-popping
Spectacle.
Yeah, and Broadway does that. Nothing else. It's fantastic, but that's not who we're competing against. We're not competing against Netflix. This is live theater. If you don't see it when it's up, it will be gone. If you don't see it the night that you see it, you will never see that exact same performance again. It is going to go away. It's ephemeral. Is that the right word in that sense? It's fleeting by design. And so in that sense, I just watch that same show on Netflix. Good for you. And you could watch it again tomorrow and see the same thing, but that's not going to happen here. So there's a sense of maybe FOMO, like what am I going to sound on, right? Like Yeah, because you're not going to see the same thing twice. I think also I've heard you talk about contemporary writers. So we want to be highlighting diverse and contemporary playwrights and also plays that speak to our humanity. So there's lots of things that we could do anyway, all kinds of adjectives, but we really want to nourish our audiences with things that help them to appreciate themselves, appreciate each other, get connected, find themselves in context, right? Like we are so, I want to come back to that word, atomized. We are so individualized. It's all up to you. It's never been all up to me. That is a lie that the isolation in my mind tells me, is that I have to do it myself and it's all up to me and there's no one else. And no, it's not actually true. And so I find sanity and rest when I can find myself in context. And one of the great ways that happens is in the stories of other people. And coming to theater is good for your mental health. It helps you become in context so that you can live to fight another day, so that you can find some joy to keep going another day. And I find that humanitarian side of it to be really meaningful.
It's not, once again, it all ties back to having a unique experience and sharing that unique experience with others. And to your point, there's not a lot of times that you can't DVR something, you can't record it, can't capture that moment for eternity and then watch it again. I mean,
On a plane, on a train, in a bus, at the bus.
you're not doing it. It's just not happening. And to that point, that's what makes it so magical. That environment is one of a kind. It's unique. It's why something like the Masters, for instance, the big golf tournament down in Georgia, no phones, only cameras. And you really, if you ever get the chance to go, you just have to be in the moment. And only those who are with you in that moment will truly be able to appreciate it, take it home, and really require their brain to actually store it. Because I think there's something there as well that when your phone or your tablet or whatever can store something, your brain has this muscle created where it's, I don't even need to remember it because I will have it. I will have my cyborg-like memory somewhere else, right? Yes, I think and I love that you bring up the fact that you're not competing. This is not a who wins. There is no who wins in this.
And we want all of it. Tell as many stories as we can in as many formats as we can.
We can easily go to a black box show tomorrow and still go to Broadway, and we're still happy about that. We're not looking for, it's not one wins, the other one loses. It's just a different experience.
Yes, abundance, total abundance.
So we talked a lot about what it takes to put together a production, at least when we talk about staff and ideas and the research and even the marketing. But could you possibly walk me through what it costs to do something like this? You mentioned you're a nonprofit, a 501c?
501c3.
501c3.
And we lean deeply into the non part of the nonprofit. Like it's not for profit. We need to maybe lean less.
A little bit more.
I should be on the end of the word a little bit more than the beginning of the word. But I also think it's surprising. So I've just in the last 2 weeks, I've had 2 different people talk to me about, oh, you must be making a lot of money with your classes. We're thrilled with our enrollment. We're thrilled with the work that Michelle Dan is doing in our education department. And we have a strong following, which is fantastic. A lot of money? I don't know if that's really the case. To put up a show, which would surprise people, it's about $60,000 to $80,000. Maybe if you could do things really sparingly, $50,000. No one is living in Hudson County without a partner and 2 or 3 other jobs. And you're like, what are you spending $60,000, $80,000 on? Okay. Again, like I said, 15 to 20 artists are coming together to put the show together. So each of them needs to be paid for their part of it.
This is in charity work. Yes. It's their time, it's their effort.
And that's also what makes us a professional theater, right? If we didn't pay anyone, if people just volunteered, if they were amateurs, then we would be a community theater. We're a professional regional theater. Chris has also educated me on that language. So that's how I know that's true. But we got to pay all of those people. And so someone said, what? The actors must make like $10,000 at. No, it's not, right? We pay equity rates. We also pay into their health and pension. If our designers are part of a union, then we pay to their health and pension. If our directors are part of a union, then we pay to their health and pension. By the time you do sets and you're off doing a play. Okay, lumber costs what lumber costs. We're competing with lumber costs with people who are building houses and roads and all of those tariffs and expenses, like they affect the sets that you see. They affect the wardrobes that you see, right? All of those things. And so by the time you put all those pieces together, no one's making a whole living on any play. First of all, because it's a 3 to 6 week gig. And also you're probably working, like I said, 2 or 3 other jobs. And Kevin R. Free, the last artistic director, used to say he was a multi-hyphenate. And I didn't really totally understand what that meant, except that it meant I do a lot of things. I do many different things to put together my life. And I think in the theater, it's absolutely necessary and required because money doesn't go very far when you're trying to put something up. And then people say, you must make a killing on tickets. It's to define a killing. So let's say it costs $60,000 to put up a play, best case scenario right now is we might make $15,000 to $20,000 in tickets. Now we can also sell playbill ads. We can get sponsorships for the show if we can find people to do that. We have a liquor license, which we worked really hard to get. So we're thrilled with that. So that the education piece, what doesn't pay for education goes to help offset the costs of the main stage as well. We started a program this year under Dave Zimmerman called Music and More. So community and local artists doing concerts or burlesque or open mic or comedy, any of the drag bingo, any of those types of things, or all of that is to help offset the expenses of the main stage. But this is not a matter of, we have no endowment. And at the end of the year, like we're hoping to cover all of our costs. This is not a wildly lucrative thing, even though there are people who get really rich and famous. But I think most people do this for the love because there are so many more playwrights and artists and actors that do it because they can't imagine life without it. Very few of them are going to be on the cover of any magazine. Very few of them are going to see 7 figures probably in their lifetime. And I think that surprises people. I think there's a sense that it's both cheaper than they think it is and that there's way more upside than they think there is.
And that's without even factoring in the off chance you need some fancy new wigs.
It's a rent.
It'll paying rent.
And also I wanted to point out, that's not just us. That is very standard across the board. I used to be in the emerging writers group at the Public Theater, which is probably the premier nonprofit theater in America. They're the ones that created Hamilton and took it to Broadway and many other shows that you've heard of. And I remember Oscar Eustace, who was the artistic director there, coming to our writers group and sitting down and talking with us. And he said that the Public Theater, only about 25% of their costs are covered with ticket sales. And he wanted it that way because that allowed him to bring the art to the city that he felt was the most deserving, rather than if 100% of their expenses were covered by ticket sales, then his decisions would be completely driven by what's going to sell. And that's commercial theater. That's what Broadway is. The whole point of commercial theater and Broadway is just like any other investment where the investors give you money and they expect a return. And so that theater is driven by what's going to sell. But nonprofit theater is supposed to be driven by what we think is either the best art, the most deserving voice to be put forward, what our community needs to hear right now, what brings the most humanity to our audience, not what's going to sell the most. And so the only way that we can do that and stick to that mission is by donations. And most people think, oh, you must get huge grants. We do get some grants. But the truth is that theaters like ours survive on private donations by private individuals. We live or die by them, and MST will live or die by them. But it's not just us. That is standard for nonprofit theaters.
But I would say I've been educating myself on this as well. From what I am learning, like even Broadway, only 25% of those shows give a return on the investment.
Which is the same for any startup.
Yeah.
It's one in five new businesses survives longer than I think 5 years or
5
something
years.
like that. Yeah. So it's the same for Broadway. It's not worse for Broadway.
Yeah, they're all having their show at Hamilton.
Support my Broadway producers out there. It's doing great.
Doing great.
And so Broadway does a good job of covering its costs, right? So that by the time the show goes up, they can make enough money to pay all the unions and keep the building up and the show going. But that's different than actually paying back all the investment, because the other thing that I don't think people realize is that by the time you go see a show, everything's been paid for. I'm not going to sell you a ticket and say, okay, hold on, we're going to go make the costume. No, I sold you the ticket. The show is on. I already bought that costume. We already bought the set and already bought we bought the weights. Like it's all, so the act of faith isn't just, we hope this comes together. The act of faith is we've already made the investment. We've already spent the money.
We hope you come.
We really hope you come see the show, because it costs us the same amount of money, whether you see it or not. And so there's a lot more risk, I think, than people, certainly than I was aware of before I had as much of an intimate view of the mechanics and finances in the background.
So there's a lot riding on all of this, right?
Mhm.
You want the community, you want to give back to the community. You want to be this beacon of light to the community, because to your point, one of the best things about not having to necessarily rely on the ticket sales is the fact that it doesn't have to determine necessarily what you put out there. When you think about, not to knock them, but I'm going to do it, the media outlets, right? Whenever you think about what are these news networks put in front of us? I've heard the argument time and time again. You could say they're going to put in front of you what they like and think, but also they have these, I'm not going to name companies or brands, but
Right.
There's a certain group that are definitely funding it through commercials. So the fact that you have this artistic liberty to choose what you want to do, I think is great, but it's all riding on people being in these seats.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, it puts that much more of an emphasis on having a successful production.
Yeah.
Because the people that showed up in these seats for your shows, you mentioned, everything's already paid for.
Of course.
Also, when they pay for their ticket, it's done. If they hate it, they can't get their money back. They can try, but they can't. But what's riding on it is them loving it, so that they come back again, so this can keep going and going.
And even more than that, what we actually need is even more than that.
Tell me.
What we need is for them to love it so much that they donate to the theater above and beyond the cost of a ticket sale.
How do we do it?
So when you come to our shows, on the back of the program, there's a QR code that you can scan that to donate. But you go to our website. There's a donate now button on our website. But that's what we need. We need people to love it so much that they want to support the theater. Because even if we sell out a show, we will not cover the cost of that show. It's a lot to ask.
Yeah, no, but it is, but it isn't, because of the value that you're giving back to the community in so many different ways. We touched on it through this entire conversation. Everything from the once in a lifetime type of performance you'll never see again. Give an excuse to get your friends out of their cave called the Netflix dungeon and come out and be in public and have an experience that they can share forever. And you're trying to bring something that no one's seen before. They're not going to get over in Broadway, because Broadway is going to be going for these big time motion picture like productions. So the least someone can do is not just put their tush in a seat, but donate a little bit more, because I think everyone has no problem dropping hundreds on the thing that they didn't need from Amazon. Like we've all been there,
Yes.
including us.
Yes.
Okay, I'll raise my hand too. I'm right there. But I agree.
I will also say that we take checks. So
Okay.
you can go to the website and use a credit card. We also take checks. If you feel like, oh, I don't even want to put a stamp on it, great. The mailbox is right down on Fenton Street. You could just drop it in yourself and not even have, or just hand the someone. Just hand it to us.
It's charitable donation.
They'll give you a tax receipt. We take
Yeah.
Zelle. Let us know how we can make it easier. We take DAFs, donor advised funds. We take company matches. So if your company matches charitable giving, please go get the free money. Don't leave the money on the table. So all of those things and just educating people, helping people understand that, get the vision. And I want to say it's not just a matter of we're trying to bring something to the community. I am the community. I want to be with people in the community to have this experience. This is not something I'm doing for someone, like I'm some kind of martyr. It's also for my heart. It's for my soul. It's a recognition that I can't make me by myself. And you talked earlier in this conversation about how you're known, and it's not just your job title, but I'm finding as a woman of a certain age that I change. I have many lifetimes. I have many different who I ams. And I do that when I audition new ways to be in the stories I see and hear around me. That is the work of human. And Octavia Butler was famous for being credited for the idea that we can't imagine a world we haven't seen, right? Like that there's something critically important to the act of collective imagination. And so what if we didn't need to fix the problems we see in the world as much as we needed to imagine a different world where those problems didn't exist? That's a very different activity. And that doesn't necessarily happen when I'm being spoon-fed with Netflix, although I have lots of those spoons in my house, right? But there's something about the activity of it, the action, the participation of it in live theater that I don't happen when I'm simply consuming. And while I am not going to rage about capitalism right at this moment, this is not simply about what this is not simply about what sells, right? Because what sells says that you, the audience member, me, the audience member, we're just consuming. We're just taking it. It's just about what we ingest and whether or not you're willing to pry the money from my hands while I eat the thing, right? But what if it's not simply about consuming and me being passive and transaction? What if there's something about making us human? And I want to go back to this metaphor of birth. Like, what if we are always being born to the extent that we're awake and participating? And that there's a flattening that capitalism tells us about ourselves, which is actually untrue, that I'm simply a consumer. No, in that transaction, I have a role of consumer, but that is not who I am. That is not ever just who I am. And so I think there's something richer and fuller to discuss and to live into than simply consuming.
That's incredibly powerful. I think that there was a time where you wanted to know your neighbor. There was a time in which you wanted to make sure that you were looked at as someone who was contributing to society and just doing what was right, just because you knew that it was going to create a better community for all. And maybe that was also something that got lost in translation. Maybe got lost in the talking heads, whatever it may be. But I agree that I think at the core, that is definitely a human need. It's a human need to not have to necessarily think of yourself as just, what do I get from this? But let's look at the big picture and understand, what does this do for all? And I think that was a beautiful way to articulate that, Elizabeth. And it speaks a lot about.
Can I point out one other
Please.
thing?
Yeah.
In all the numbers that Elizabeth gave you, which are all correct, that does not include the cost of this space,
Rent, toilet paper,
paying for the cleaners, or paying our salary.
right? Right.
That is just the cost of the production.
And there's 6 of them a year, 4 to 6.
Yeah. Wait, 2 of those 6 are like single night fundraising productions. And so we actually make money on those. We don't lose money on those. Yeah.
That's correct.
One would hope they're fundraising.
Yes, you would hope. Yeah.
Yes.
It's in the name. 360,000, a little bit more than $250,000 a year going towards putting together production without factoring and everything else. Like you said, rent, taxes, hopefully not too much being a nonprofit, but
Right.
Yeah.
you never know.
We don't pay
We are
taxes.
tax exempt.
Yeah.
But
So if you figure about roughly $1 million a year, that's about $84,000 a month needs to come in and, more importantly, go out. Because we're meeting. So
How the
whether at the going out. But yeah, I think those are surprising numbers, right? $85,000 a month.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's a high burn rate
Right.
for someone not seeing a lot coming in.
But it has to come in because we don't have credit. We don't have, right. So there's not an endowment. There's not investors. There is no venture capital, right? So it's got to come in because it's got to go out. And I think there's a sense of that the scale, I don't think is necessarily known. And I want people to know the scale because I want them to get the vision and join us and be with us and do it. Let's do it together. But also I think there's a sense of, no, it's just a play. No, the stakes are high. The dollars are big. Not too big, right? There's plenty of people in town that easily make $1 million a year. So you with that $85,000 coming in a month, they're cool with that.
So come on in and bring it fresh.
Exactly. So I'm not trying to say this is like impossible. It's not impossible. And we're not a lemonade stand away from being able to put all this together.
Yeah. This has been great, guys. So tell me this, where can people find you? Like social media, websites, where can they find you? And then how much is a ticket to your next show? And what is your next show?
yeah, that's the best question. So you can find us at our website, which is milesquaretheater.org. Theater spelled with an R-E, not an E-R. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. Are we on anything else? LinkedIn. I think we're on TikTok, but don't look at us there.
Right. So I'm looking on YouTube.
Okay.
And yes, so if you just Google Mile Square Theater Hoboken, we will definitely come up. Our next production is one that we are all so excited about. It's called The Mountaintop. It's by Katori Hall, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright. She is one of America's greats. She's a living playwright. And this play is about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. the night before his assassination. And it is a really powerful play. It's also funny, very funny. I was at the first read through today and I was laughing like crazy. Our actors are so good. Like, it's going to be not just a great show, but I think a really meaningful experience. And I think it's going to be really therapeutic and healing because as I've been working peripherally on the play, just the conversations about America and democracy and how important it is that we have the right to protest our own government and how important it is that we have the right to vote and that our officials are elected and they are put there by us. All of these things are they're so important for us to hold on to all of these things. And similar to the 1960s, we're in a time in America where there are a lot of protests going on. A lot of people are unhappy with leadership in America. And I think a lot of people are looking to lower level leaders, lower meaning like lower than federal, right? to guide us through this time. And that's what Martin Luther King Jr. was doing.
And we need community leaders, which is what you
Yeah.
both are community leaders.
And he became this huge giant, but that's not how he started. He started as a pastor and a scholar and someone who had the courage and the intellect and the community to make a difference. And so to me, the play, even though it's like about a time in American history that was really tense, it's so hopeful because as someone that didn't live through that, none of us in this room did, I go, okay, America survived that and leaders stood up and good leaders stood up and they made a difference. And that can happen now too.
Yeah, I agree. Most importantly, on top of that, what is the date? What time are we on?
Tickets are on sale now.
Okay. Right
So
now.
buy your tickets now. And the sooner you buy your tickets, the better it is for us. Because if you wait till the last minute, we still want you to come. But we're spending the money now very quickly.
Yes.
It opens on the first performance is April 16th. That's our first preview. Opening night is April 17th, and it runs for 3 weeks through May 3rd.
3 weeks through May 3rd. Buy your tickets now. Buy them now because everything that Chris just highlighted is something that you're going to want to see. I will be in those seats. So fast forward to all my friends, you know where you're spending your money. It's right here with the theater. Okay. And how much are tickets to go on sale?
$40.
$40. Come on. That's nothing, folks. So I want all of us here, Mile Square Theater, Hoboken, New Jersey. Guys, thank you so much for your time. This has been really amazing. Thank you for joining us on the Friday Sponge. Hope you soaked it up.